Well, hi everybody, I'm Neil Smith and welcome to my Polar Lights 1/350th scale U.S.S. Enterprise Refit build. January 26, 2018. I got my lighting kit from Big Easy Modeling Solutions and it is fantastic. I ordered the Commander series, but I'm upgrading to the Captain series. I can't wait for that to arrive. I really have no way of comparing this kit to other kits in real life, but from what I've seen online, this kit gives me all the bells and whistles at a fraction of the cost of the more expensive kits. But the main reason I bought the BEMS kit is that the guy who runs the place was talking on a blog or somewhere or something and mentioned that his kits are a bit more subtle than most kits. A lot of the lighting kits I've seen on YouTube and the internet seem, in my opinion, to be way too bright with too much glare. Plus, the BEMS kit comes with a dimmer switch so I can control the amount of brightness. Lastly, BEMS has recently reworked the deflector dish and impulse crystal light colors to be much more screen accurate, and I can attest to that. It is by far the most accurate as far as color goes to the motion picture. In fact, I think I'm the first one to have this updated kit. This kit is super organized and color-coded. I mean, even I can do it. February 6th, 2018. While grinding away at the saucer to prep it for lighting, I ran into a problem. Not much due to a lack of patience, but due to a lack of attention. I'm realizing that I have at any one time at least 3 sets of instructions to check. The kit instructions, the lighting instructions, and the photo etch instructions, and all the builds on the YouTubes and the internet. But sometimes I get into a zone and forget to check exactly where I am in the process. So I finished out grinding the saucer to allow for the lighting and started to put in the saucer walls. And it wasn't until I was done that I realized that with the saucer walls in place, I couldn't put the clear window parts or the clear RCS thruster parts in. I know it's not a huge problem. I can use canopy glue or something like that for the windows, but it was yet another reminder to think first, glue second. After looking at my saucer a little bit closer though, I realized that the only thing preventing me from putting in the windows on the saucer was a little bit of plastic that I could very carefully cut out with a hobby knife and some tweezers. February 12th, 2018. Light blocking the interior of the parts was a sheer joy. I could spray this crap on as thick as I wanted. I also thought it would be a good time to do a dry fit. I'm planning on doing another right before I start painting, just to be sure. A lot of parts on this thing have extremely tight fits, so some filing and sanding was needed. I was attempting to drill out a slightly bigger hole to allow for my 1.8mm LED for the bridge strobe light. I got the hole just right, but the circular recessed area around the hole on the inside of the part was a bit too narrow to allow me to fully seat the LED, so that it pops up a little bit on the top. So I carefully started cutting out the area in order to make it a little wider. I put too much pressure on it and shoved my drill through the now very thin layer of plastic, and it came out the other side, a huge hole on the top of the bridge. After a few moments of freaking out, I took what I learned from all the internets and the YouTubes and stuff and said, hey, you will screw up, don't panic, it's just plastic. So I puttied up the hole and re-drilled. It looks okay at the moment, but time will tell once I get it mounted on the saucer with the lights plugged in. As a backup plan, I'm getting a replacement resin bridge, just in case. February 16th, 2018. Lighting the saucer went very smoothly. I'm holding off on wiring up the bridge strobe and floodlights until I resolve my bridge issue, and I haven't added the impulse engines or impulse crystal yet. I had to do a little bit more light blocking on the saucer walls, but everything else is looking great. The BEMS lighting kit has these little terminals for the saucer and the nacelles into which I put all my wires. They connect via something called a JST connector to reduce the number of wires going down through the model down to the board. Once I figured out the positioning of the LEDs on the planetary sensor floodlights, The lower saucer went just as smoothly. Again, a little bit more light blocking was needed. February 24th, 2018. Although I am learning a lot about being patient during this build, I still get into trouble. In the latest case, I was too quick to spray the frosted glass coat onto the impulse crystal, and it cracked. No biggie, I've stripped off bad paint jobs so many times on this model. However, in stripping off the frosted glass coat, I also stripped off the fine detail painting on the outer side, so I had to repaint the outside. And the problem came when I realized that I had used all of the little paint masks from my handy-dandy Orbital Drydock's clear parts paint mask set. But I realized that the leftover spaces in between the already used masks for the impulse crystal were almost exactly the same size as the masks themselves. So I just trimmed them down a little bit to make them a little thinner, and they fit perfectly. This little trick saved me a ton of time in making my own masks from scratch. I wasn't sure if I wanted to do lasers or LEDs for the phasers. And up until I actually installed them, I still wasn't sure. But I'm glad I decided on the lasers. It adds a different kind of light to the model, and they look really great. I need to get a photo of them with like some smoke or fog or dust or whatever so you can see the beams. It's pretty cool. With everything installed inside the saucer, it was time to make some sense out of this rat's nest of wires. I had tried very hard to keep things organized and neat inside the saucer, but there are just so many different lights that it was really difficult. Fortunately, the BEMS lighting kit comes with these connectors that attach to tethers that reduce the number of wires needed to run through the model. This was great lifesaver for me and my messy nest of wires. I also mounted the impulse crystal using a 3D printed part that holds the LED in place and also blocks most of the light. April 8th, 2018. After making all the connections, I plugged everything into the boards for testing. Everything ran beautifully. The BEMS kit has a main board for most of the lights, a second board to handle phasers, photon torpedoes, and warp effects, and the third board handles all the sound effects. Here's a shot of the tethers coming out of the saucer. Very clean, very simple. The purple wires are for the phasers, which do have their own terminal, but I broke the terminal for the interior lights and decided to use the phaser terminal for them and run the phasers out of the saucer on their own. It's just 2 extra wires, no big deal. Finally, I sealed up the saucer and glued it together. This was not nearly as stressful as sealing up the nacelles, probably because the nacelles were the first things I actually glued together, but we'll get to that later. But this was the moment where the whole thing starts looking like the Enterprise. It's more than just a collection of parts, it begins to take shape. Well, that's all the time we have for this episode. Be sure to subscribe so you can follow along with the rest of the build. And if you're interested in any of my recommended modeling tools and supplies, check out my Amazon store in the description below, featuring some of my favorites. Until next time, I'm Neil Smith. Thanks for watching.